And so I have a friend and a source in this book named Nicholas Epley, who's a social psychologist at the University of Chicago. And he commutes down to school every day. And he was on a commuter train. And he knows, because he's a social psychologist, the thing that makes us happiest is having conversations with other human beings. But he's looking around the commuter train, and everybody's on their screens with headphones in. And so he's a social psychologist. He pays people on the subsequent trips $100 each to talk to a stranger. And they all report back afterwards with the researchers that this ride, talking to a stranger, was 1,000 times better than their normal ride just on their screens. And his conclusion is we badly underestimate how much we'll enjoy these conversations. We badly underestimate how deep people want to get. And so if you can break through, it actually pays off. And I'm, as I said, not the jokey or the social guy on earth, and I used to go on the plane with headphones in, even if there was no music, so my seatmate wouldn't talk to me. But now I talk to people, and I talked to a guy a couple of weeks ago or months ago who was this big Trump supporter. He migrated to this country from Russia at age 7. He built up a company selling T-shirts to other parts of the world, and he made a fortune, lost a fortune, made a fortune, lost a fortune, had more marriages than I could count. And at the end of the trip, he's showing me his vacation. He's an 80-year-old guy. He's surrounded by 20-year-olds on the back of a yacht. I don't know where these people came from, but so he wasn't my cup of tea, but I remember that conversation. And so I just find if you can break through that barrier, people will enjoy it. The final story I'll tell is a guy named Dan McAdams, who's a researcher at Northwestern. He studies how people tell their life stories. And so what he does is he brings people in, he asks them, tell me about your high points, your low points, your turning points, and the interviews take 4 hours. And he said half the people cry at some point, but then at the end he hands them a little check to compensate them for their time. And they push the check back. They say, I don't want to take money for this. This has been the best afternoon I've had in years, because no one has ever asked me the story. And as a journalist, I can tell you, if you approach somebody and say, tell me your story in a respectful way, no one ever says, none of your damn business. They're thrilled to do it. Now, having said that, when my wife tells me to put away my phone, I get pissed off at her. But it's probably a good practice. And then the final change, I would say, is I got a lot more emotions going on right now. Like when I was back at Radnor, I used to think, well, all these people are suffering, but I'm shallow. I'm happy with that. I'm good. And now I feel happy, like joyously happy sometimes, and really sad and pained other times. And I think, man, emotions are very much a mixed blessing. But it's better to live that way than not. There's a novelist who I admire named Frederick Buechner. His dad died when he was 9, and he never grieved. And then in middle age, he said, if you cut yourself off from the pain of life, you cut yourself off from the holy sources of life itself. And so he opened himself up over the course of his adulthood, and by the end, he was crying about his dad every day. And he said, what we want most is someone to look in our face with full understanding and respect. And what we fear most is somebody to look into our face with full understanding and respect. And so he says, what you should do is you should tell your secrets from time to time. Because if you tell your secrets, you will not fall for the false version of yourself you're trying to sell to the world. And you'll make it easier for the other person to tell a few secrets of their own. And so that's the kind of trajectory and path of openness and deeper connection that I'm shooting for. And I think when I first wanted to write this book was how many people told me they felt invisible and unseen. And it came up again and again in interviews. And this was black people telling me that white people didn't understand the systemic injustices they face every day. It was rural people telling me they didn't feel seen by coastal elites. It was Republicans and Democrats looking at each other in blind incomprehension. It was lonely kids who had no one to see them well. It was people in broken marriages who realized the person who should know them best had no clue. And it just seemed there was so much pain. And at about this time, I just wanted to be a deeper version of myself. And so it's hopefully for the society, but personal transformation and social transformation happen at the same time. And it's how we each show up in the world is how we make a world. And so I wanted to be better myself. And so a lot of us writers, we're just working out our shit in public. My favorite saying about writing is, a writer, I'm a beggar who tells other beggar where he found bread. So if I read something or hear something that's useful to me, I love sharing it. And so that's the thing that gets me greatest joy is when I learn something, I write it down, I put it in a book, I talk about it, and I see other people writing it down. And so I'm not so much a writer, I'm a teacher. I just convey the knowledge that I've heard. And I must say, it's been a horrible 4 years in many ways, but it's been so uplifting to be around people who are just phenomenal, good illuminators. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.